people in the room, and we forego that for the virtual participants. But I think with some new membership on the MPO, that'd be good, so everybody's on the same level playing field and aware of who is joining us. So we'll go ahead and do introductions. Before that, I just want to acknowledge the new appointments. In the room, we have Bob Stout, the director of the Monterey Recreation Commission. Glad to have Bob. We partnered over the years quite a bit on various transportation and recreation matters. And so he was appointed by the SEDA COG Board of Directors earlier this week. They're meeting January 24th as the multimode interest voting member on the MPO. And also Michelle Holman was retained as our transit interest voting member by the SEDA COG Board of Directors. And then we have a new county commissioner. Columbia County had a change in their SEDA COG Board of Director voting member. And so Randy Karshner has replaced Commissioner Rich Ridgway. So he'll be the new incoming voting member. We're glad to have that linkage and an elected official serving on the board, and that liaison to the SEDA COG Board of Directors. So he will be new. And also we have Nathan Walker in the room with us today from PennDOT Program Center. Nathan's the division manager for the 12-year program and funding division at PennDOT Central Office. And he'll be taking the voting seat of Frank Hampton. Frank will still be our technical kind of liaison and resource for us in the program center, but kind of across the board, statewide, there's been some adjustments in the voting seats, and we're glad to have Nathan with us today. And always glad to have an alum of one of our area institutes of higher education at Lock Haven University. So we're glad to have you join the group as an official voting member today as well. Those are kind of the new voting seats I just wanted to acknowledge up front. And we'll start with Michelle in the room and do introductions if you don't mind.
I'm Michelle Ballou. I'm the program assistant for the MPO as well as the Joint Rebel Board.
I'm James Latier, the Mifflin County Planning Director.
Sean Block on Union County Planning. Greg Moulter, Montour County Planning.
Bob Stout, Monterey Recreation Commission.
Nathan Walker, PennDOT Central Office.
Fred Kerstetter, Union County Planning.
John Keel and the transportation staff here, SEDA COG.
Steve Gibson, Clinton County Planning Director.
Kristen McLaughlin with SEDA COG.
And Steve Herman, SEDA COG Transportation Planning Program Director. So thank you all for in the room. I'll just kind of, to avoid maybe folks stepping over each other, as I see them on the screen, if you're able to unmute and introduce yourselves as well. And I first see Ginny Eagles-Carr with Dewberry.
Good morning.
Thanks, Ginny, for being with us. And Ginny has a long history working in PennDOT District 3 formerly, so brings a lot to the table. And Michelle Ocker-Holman, if you don't mind.
Good morning, Michelle Ocker-Holman, and I'm a site supervisor here for Rabbit Transit Office is in Sea Island Grove.
Thank you, Michelle. And next, see Brian Funkhauser, please.
Hey, good morning, everyone. I'm Brian Funkhauser with Michael Baker, and I'm currently assisting Steve and the staff on the Route 15 corridor improvement study and also providing assistance on the electric vehicle charging initiative.
Thank you, Brian. For me, I see Matt Wise next. If you can unmute, please.
Good morning, everyone. Matt Wise. I'm the district director for State Senator Gene Yaw.
Thank you. How about Justin Scavery, please?
Good morning, Justin Scavery, Northumberland County Planning.
Thank you, Justin. How about Jeff Eisman, please?
Good morning, Jeff Eisman, PA Silk, PA Transportation Alliance.
Thank you, Jeff. And Frank Hampton.
Good morning, Frank Hampton, PennDOT Central Office Planning.
Thanks, Frank. I think my screen changed, but Eric Staley, please.
Good morning, Eric Staley representing Columbia County.
Thank you, Eric. And Craig Sadison.
Good morning, Craig Sadison, PennDOT District 2 Design Services Engineer.
Thank you, Craig. How about Dwayne Gogler?
Yes, good morning. Dwayne Gogler, Larson Design Group, Project Manager in our Sea Island Grove office, doing bridge.
Great. Thank you, Dwayne. And Jonathan Shaw, please.
Good morning, Jonathan Shaw. I'm a transportation planner with the Lackawanna Luzerne MPO.
Thanks for joining us, John. Mark Schultz, please.
Good morning, everyone. Mark Schultz, Engineering District 2O, Planning Programming Manager.
Thanks, Mark. Eric Murniak.
Hey, everyone. Eric Murniak, AD Design, District 2.
And keep District 2 going, Thomas Preshdash, please.
Steve, Tom was having issues with, he was having some issues with the link, so he's still trying to get in, I think.
Okay, no worries. And Tom is the district executive for PennDOT District 2. So glad to have a good contingent from District 2 today. Thank you. And Gene Peroshniak, please.
Yes, good morning.
Thanks, Gene. And Gene is our Federal Highway Administration liaison out of the Pennsylvania Division. Thanks for being with us. And then District 3, Chris King, please. May had issue there, but Chris King is the planning and programming manager at PennDOT District 3, and he'll be standing in for John Rank, our typical voting member from District 3 today. So I believe we hit everyone. Did I miss anyone from the round of introductions? Oh, Michelle Brummer, I see you joined us. I don't think you're unmuted, Michelle.
Having multiple devices with a microphone, yes. All right. Happy to be here. I'll be giving updates on the Complete Streets program and the MPO strategic plan later in the meeting. Happy to be here. Great.
Thanks, Michelle. And as you know, Michelle from various past studies and projects she's worked on, glad to have her as part of our consultant team from Gannett Plumbing. So thank you, Michelle. And I think that is everyone then, unless I missed someone during the scrolling. So thanks. I know it took a little bit longer than usual, but we have several new members, and hopefully that helped get everyone acclimated for our round of introductions. In the public forum, is there anything that anyone wants to bring to the attention of the board on the agenda at this time? Okay, if not, there is one I had for an addition here. Frank Hampton at the last meeting of last year in November was installed as the vice chair. Traditionally, the SEDA COG Transportation Program staff as director has served as the chair, and the PennDOT Program Center as vice chair. But since we had a turnover in the voting representation with Nathan assuming the voting role, the PennDOT Central Office, we felt we should probably take a vote to record that today to install Nathan as the vice chair. So we would look for a motion to designate Nathan Walker as the vice chair of the SEDA COG MPO. So moved by Greg Moore. Thank you for the first. Do we have a second? Second by Brad. Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, great. Thank you, Nathan. Welcome to the board, and welcome as the vice chair now as well. Next item on the agenda, we have item C is the approval of the November 17th meeting minutes, which are in your packet. Those of you who have hard copy, and those were also shared on Tuesday this week in the electronic meeting packet. They begin on page 3. So if everyone's had a chance to review those, we'd look for a motion to approve as presented the November 17th minutes.
So moved.
Thank you, Sean, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Jim. Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, same sign. Any abstentions?
Abstain, I wasn't in attendance.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, that has been properly motioned, seconded, and passed. Next on our agenda is item E. That's our typical TIP, administrative modifications and amendments. Those are included in your packet. Those here in the hard copy form and also online. And also, as we've been doing for the past, I think, 4 or 5 meetings, we have the web map that accompanies these and also includes project details, what's occurring. So hopefully able to have a chance to click on that and get more familiar with each of the project adjustments that were occurring. We think that's a nice model, and we'll continue with that. And if there's any comments or suggestions folks have, we'd be glad to look at any tweaking. But Bryce, who's not with us today since he's on vacation, does a great job with that, but we're always open to improvements and enhancements to that web map. But the administrative modifications, there's no amendments this time, no new amendments, are in your packet. For District 2, those begin on page 10 and run until page 12, I believe. And we would look to have Mark Schultz do a rundown of anything you would like to cover, Mark, on any adjustments in District 2.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you. Appreciate that. In the middle of page 10, you'll notice that we have a transfer of funds from Clinton County into Lycoming County. That is a District 3, District 2 companion project that is coming out of District 3 in Lycoming County and extending into Clinton County towards the Avis interchange. District 3 had reached out to us and talked to us about supporting that project and the pavement approaches to the bridge work that's going on there. So that came out of the Clinton County portion. As we move down, we have an adjustment at the bottom of the page there for the betterment line item, just to advance funds and kind of balance things up there for that project. We then move into page 11 and we look at in the center of that page, we also have a bridge preservation project. In a bridge preservation project, we typically have multiple locations. When we have a project that has multiple locations and multiple right-of-way interests, we can only utilize one location for the specific bridge preservation project. We had to create a second MPMS project for that. That's why it's identified as bridge preservation ROW for right-of-way. That will allow us to get access to support the bridge preservation needs at that location. And then moving down to page 12, we look at Valley Street betterment and the construction phase. There was a very minor adjustment needed there to complete or support the construction phase. Project is the Port Royal Bridge over Norfolk Southern. We had some increased costs with the extension of the work, and we had to do an adjustment there for about $300,000. We're still waiting on finalization of the project and final invoicing to be submitted by both the railroad and the contractor for that one. But that's all I have at this time for District 2. Any questions?
Thank you, Mark. Just on the, sorry, Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question, Mark. This is Jim Latier. On page 10, under the project number 114010, the additional $1,920,756. Why was that funded additional monies, or was that the additional monies to the original TIP for that betterment project in Mifflin County?
What we did there was we adjusted and advanced funds. The funds were advanced out of, I believe, out of 2025 and brought into 2024. So it was to allow us the proper use of funds to support that project. That project was just bid and will be going out to construction next year.
Thank you. And then the other project
it's going out to construction this year, 2024.
Thank you. The other project you talked about broke up there at the end for the Valley Street betterment. You said that was a minor adjustment for, what was it for again?
For the construction phase of $27,000.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim, for those questions.
I have a question.
And Steve Gibson has a question as well, Mark.
Mark, can you just explain what the reserve betterment safety line item is that's coming from Clinton County?
Yes. What we see there is in District 2, we have a combination of 3 counties, Clinton County, Mifflin, and Juniata. Is as an effort to identify, collect, utilize reserve funds. So if there's an adjustment to a project, if there's a change in a project and funds become available within a specific federal fiscal year, we have the opportunity to move those funds to a hold area, a reserve area that we call it. And that reserve area is established within an MPMS project in what we identified as Clinton County. So that reserve line item holds funds that can be utilized on a project in Clinton, Mifflin, and or Juniata throughout the SEDA COG region in District 3. I'm sorry, in District 2. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
So it's for needs to be identified, or if you get cost savings on their projects, you can place them in the line item until, you know, they come together and are further developed. But like Mark said, you'll see it just alphabetically. It shows it's in Clinton County, it can be used for projects across the District 2 region, and the same for District 3. You'll see those reside in Columbia County, those kind of reserve line items, but then as they're identified across the entire territory, they'll be assigned to the projects in the individual areas.
Thank you.
Thank you for the questions and discussion. A quick one I had, Mark, just on the bridge over the Norfolk Southern Railroad. Have there been improvements in some of the response times from Norfolk Southern on this and other projects? Or I know you said there's some things still need to be finalized, but have they been moving a little bit smoother as what you've seen across District 2?
We went into this project with the understanding that we were going to utilize official Norfolk Southern flaggers, railroad flaggers for the project and for the safety of the project. Shortly after the bid of the project, Norfolk Southern changed that message to us, and we had to adjust in our contract, our awarded contract for construction, to have our construction contractor get a subcontractor for railroad protective services. So that was a difficult effort. It has become more of a pattern now, and it's something that we're working towards getting a better understanding and preparing for that as we move forward. We do have some upcoming projects that involve Norfolk Southern. We'll be facing that same interest as we move ahead.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or discussion on the District 2 adjustments? Now we would look for a motion to approve as presented.
Move to approve, Steve.
Thank you, Brad. The motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
So Steve, we'll give you the second. Thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you. Thank you, Mark. Anything additional, Mark, you want to share?
I'm sorry, Steve, what was that?
I just want to make sure there wasn't anything additional you wanted to cover or share at this time.
No, we appreciate the communication that we're having here and the effort and communication with SEDA COG as we move forward with these projects. There is constant balancing between all phases, and appreciate that talk. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next we're up to the District 3 adjustments. Those go from page 13 to page 20 of your packet. And we have Chris King, if you're able to unmute and highlight anything you'd like to present for the adjustments to District 3. So Chris is calling us. I'm not sure. Are you able to unmute, or can you hear us okay, Chris? See anything in the chat from him? So we'll refer you off to those in your packet. Again, pages 13 to 20. A lot of balancing, like Mark had said, and adjustments were occurring there. Did anything stand out to any of the members that you'd like to pose questions about the adjustments in District 3? And you'll see two amendments on page 14, but this is just as they appear after they're approved by the members and work through the electronic STIP amendment process and go through program center reviews and the Federal Highway Administration. So it's more like just a ratification of what was already approved, that you would see those amendments pop up on your adjustments on page 14. But those were already approved by the board at our November 17th meeting.
Quick question, as a new person, did you say that there is a web map app that you can click on these and since you find more detail?
Yes, yeah, we shared that in the summary that went out on Tuesday with the packet. usually try to highlight right at the bottom of the email. And then it's also in the staff report as well, but I can bring it up real quick here while we have him in a moment, or maybe Chris can get himself unmuted in case there's any questions. But I'll hit share screen here and just bring it up for everyone.
Hey, Steve, I have a question. There's two on here, one on page 13 and one on page, I forget the other page, 19, where it's all zeros. Like we're approving an action where everything's zero. Page 13, the Columbia County, Montour, Columbia, the amounts are all zero at the bottom. Then there's another one of those.
Oh, okay. Frank, are you able to follow along there? The
Yes.
page 19 and the
Yeah,
other
I
one
see what
where
it's
it's just-
referring to. That's where the action that changed with the actual individual projects, that the amount coming into a project equal the amount going out of a project, meaning it may have been just a change in the specific flavor of funds, but it was equal. And so the overall change was zero. And so those funds might have been moved back and forth between the projects, and the flavor is just changing, but it zeroed out. So there was actually nothing there as far as an increase or decrease overall for the projects. Does that make sense?
Yes. It does. We need to approve that.
It's just an accounting of it all there, yeah. The flavor of the funding. Chris sent an email. He's going to try and reconnect in case there's any additional questions for him, standing in for John here today. But I did bring up the web map here, Bob. So this is what that looks like. It uses the Esri suite of projects as a dashboard, so you can click on any of these points, and it'll essentially pull down from PennDOT one map some of the particulars we try to highlight: the name, the type of project that it is, the status or stage, and then pulling from the public narrative and PennDOT's databases. Brief description of the increase or decrease that you see on the charts in the packet, the amount, and then what the let date is, when the bid opening is going to occur for each of the projects. And then you'll see the county and the municipality and district as well. So we try to have that available. And then at the bottom here, you'll see the dates of the MPO meeting. So you can go back in time and see what was reviewed and approved at the prior meetings as well.
It's a great asset. Thank you.
Sure.
That link will also be sent out in the follow-up to today's meeting section.
Thank you.
Sure. Yeah, you're welcome. And I think that's a nice, it's kind of hard when you're just looking at tables, or charts. So this is a way to visually, hopefully get you familiar with the projects and what's going on with them. And we'll do that for each meeting going forward. You'll see the different colors. I think the red are the amendments. Yes. Yeah, so that's catching some of those group projects from the last time, the lighting projects in District 3 that were approved, and the blue are the lower tier administrative modifications.
One question on the SR 54 improvements. We've got one on page 13, 100483, 254 to 3008, and on page 14, project 99130 from SR 3008 to the roadside rest. Are those projects going to run concurrent? Do you know? And why are they two separate projects? Sounds like a continuation of the same road.
I think maybe that was, there was a lesser adjustment and then there was an amendment. Oh no, they're different sections of.
Yeah, they're different sections, but it's a continuation. And I was just wondering if that section of road or both sections are going to be under construction, whatever that might be, during the same time period. Are they going to run concurrent?
I'm not sure for the sequencing. Chris, are you able to hear us again or comment? That's a safety project. I'll try and zoom in here and see if I can get the let date for you.
Okay.
Okay, so this one, the 1,043 is mill and resurfacing or 254 to Valley Road. And that left date is July 11th this year. And
I just looked at our ECMS, those two projects, all grouped together, so.
so it should be synchronized.
We're gonna be under one contractor. Okay. So basically start at one end and end up to finish the other, hopefully.
That's what it looks like, yeah.
Yeah. We're just concerned with it coming under 80 and being in that interchange area, if how much it's gonna tie up for transportation during the construction phase.
Yeah, so it sounds like that should be coordinated,
Okay.
reflected that way. Thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
Additional questions on the District 3 adjustments?
Hey, Steve, this is Frank.
Hi, Frank.
If you want to go back to the page, what was it, 13, the gentleman had the question about the zeros. I want to make sure he was firmly grasping what was being done there. I can walk him through it.
Sure, yeah, go ahead.
So the question was, let me see here. On page 13, we'll look at management action 133022, which was done on the 9th of November. And we'll just use one project, for example. You look at the second project under the list of from, you'll see 93524 construction. You'll see BRIP funds, BRIP, Bridge Investment Program funds, decreased by a certain amount, 575,000 in 2004. And if you look down below, you see that there was STP funds coming in, and then further down below, you see the BRIP has been pushed all the way out to 25 as well. So you see the overall 375 and 200,000 is 575. It just spread it over 2 years with a flavor change. So that's why it shows a zero change. And it's similar with the other projects. It's just basically changing flavors and some cash flow. I hope that clears that up for you.
Thank you. Great. Thank you, Frank, for the add-on. Any additional comments or questions? And again, the amendments there were already approved previously and kind of can vary across the board, but like we've shared in the past, if you're newer members, these adjustments that are lower tier don't require an official vote by the MPO, but we always like to make sure we have that buy-in and awareness of a vote is usually taken traditionally by the SEDA COG MPO on these administrative modifications. So if there were no further questions, we would look for a motion to approve the District 3 tip adjustments.
So moved.
Thank you, Greg, for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second, Derek Staley.
Eric, thank you for the second. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Great, thank you.
Steve, in the future, it would be nice if District 3 could participate, though. Could you?
Yeah, I'm not sure what happened with Chris. He sent an email, he was gonna try and reconnect. He was calling in apparently, but yeah, John was unable to be with us today, and Chris was joining virtually, and I guess just could not work through some of the technical things, unfortunately. So thank you.
Give District 2 bonus points. And central office.
Okay. Thank you for your review and discussion on all the District 2 and District 3 project adjustments. This section of the packet, we also have our traditional projects that were approved for addition to the TIP in the past, but we're still kind of working through project development. And so those are on page 21. Betsy's going to be addressing us on Appalachian Regional Commission Local Access Road Program. And you see a couple of those projects, one in Snyder County, one in Northumberland County, and they have estimated left dates 2025. So as more comes together on those, we can share updates in this table or with each of the individual members, but that's just something we try to carry over for your information. So with that taken care of, I don't know if Chris was able to join us. John Rank usually gives us an update on the CSVT project and also the Route 54, the major highway safety improvement project in Montour County. And unless we hear him interject or step in, I'll just kind of highlight a couple things here in your packet. We had shared on page 23 begins the news release on the traffic counts that were conducted last fall. In the fall of 2022, after CSVT Northern Section had opened their traffic counts, and updated versions taken in October of 2023. See the highlights there in your packet in the press release. There have been increases in the usage of the bridge, which was to be expected, and it's good that folks are being routed and taking this major new capacity expansion within the region. So it's really doing the job as intended, as you can see in the summary there, particularly for Northumberland Borough and also Route 15 in the Lewisburg area. The reduction in overall traffic volumes, and especially the truck traffic, is significant. Route 405, old Route 147, you can see that the overall traffic volumes are 40% less, and the daily truck volume 75% less. So if you're traveling through those areas on any kind of basis, you definitely notice it's observable as to what's been occurring. Been less so on Route 45, that east-west travel. It's not had a significant change or reduction there. So the press release is included, and then we also had in the packet the map graphics with the tables of the traffic changes over time, the pre-CSVT construction, the October 2022 and the October 2023 traffic volumes. So we wanted to make sure that everyone was aware of that. I know some of you had seen it or we were sharing the details, but we wanted to make sure that was in the packet. And otherwise, the project is advancing. Southern section work is ongoing. And if you're traveling through there, you can see the roundabouts, you can see the other earthwork and the beginning work for the structures. And ultimately, the CSVT will be constructed and open the traffic in 2027. It's still on that target and that time frame. So any questions on the CSVT project at all, or any additional commentary by any PennDOT staff, either District 3 or Program Center? Okay, hearing none, I have no additional updates on the Route 54 safety project. I'm not sure if there's been any additional consultation, Greg, with you of late since the latest round of public official meetings or anything additional?
The only question that's been asked of me is everything been cleared? Have all right-of-ways been taken care of? Is there anything holding up the project at this point in time?
Okay, I've not heard anything of late that there's been any stalling or any additional issues with any of the permitting or approvals. So we can make sure that John follows up with you or Chris.
Yeah, that was the only question. One of the officials had asked me from Valley Township, there seems to be some question with some land developers as far as the right-of-ways connecting 642 East with 54, that stretch of land, as to whether all right-of-ways and everything have been secured.
And I think I saw you had joined on, John. Do you happen to have any updates on that for Greg's question?
Yeah, Steve, sorry everybody. Chris just, for me, I had to hop off from a training I was on and get over here as quick as I could. The only thing with 54, really, the only issue, truthfully, Greg, is the basically, since the land that surrounds what we're, pushing through as far as where we want to put a new roadway is agriculture. We have to go through extended, like a right-of-way acquisition process with the landowners. And one is Geisinger and the other is, I believe, some sort of like land ag group. Neither of them so far we've given them our price proposal and they come countered, and both of the counters are pretty far off from where we were at. We're still trying to, negotiate with them amicably, but it is possible we will have to go to LCAB on this. And I can't remember the full definition of LCAB as far as breaking it down, but basically it's going through a process that a judge that oversees that, basically to find some sort of amicable resolution to all parties. a lot of times it's quick. Sometimes it pushes some things out. I think if we would go to full ALCAB, it would probably push us to more of a fall letting instead of a early summer letting.
Okay. Is there anything that the county commissioners can do, or our office in assisting in any way?
I don't think so. I mean, this is, we went through this with CSVT, and again, we had landowners coming back to us, agricultural landowners coming back to us with, pretty, exaggerated cost expectations. And in that case, the judge sided with us. So, I think from what I've gathered that Geisinger's a little bit more amicable. This agriculture group, maybe not so much. But again, it's basically at some point in time, it's really out of everybody's hand. It goes to basically the judge's hands to, for lack of a better way to say it, to determine, the outcome of this, if we can't reach an agreement with the two parties.
I'd appreciate you just keep us updated when those things happen.
Yeah, and I'm sorry about this one. This one, unfortunately, is, we try our best to do an amicable solution, but, things like this get pulled out of our hands, and we just kind of have to, we're now subject to waiting as much as everybody else is, unfortunately.
Understand. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Sorry to take you away, but thanks for hopping on and joining us here today. I give a rundown just quickly of the CSVT traffic volumes, and that my understanding everything's kind of moving forward, proceeding well on the southern section. Those contracts, the two that are underway, and then also for the third to be opened up at a future time. Is there anything additional you'd like to share on the CSVT contracts or projects at all?
No, nothing at this time, Stevie. There wasn't much. I don't have the notes in front of me, but I kind of saw them as they went to Chris. There wasn't really anything new as an update. I think they slowed down just a little bit due to winter activities, but not too much over in the earthworks section. And now they're going to be starting the structures as well. We're still on track for a late 2025 let for the final paving. And then a completion again in, probably around the end of 2027 and opening. So, everything seems to be on track as far as what we still have to complete, in regards to the, what we have ongoing construction wise and what we still have in design.
Great, thank you. Any other questions for John on major significant projects we have underway in the CSVT and the Route 54 safety project? Anything additional you want to share on anything, John, that we may have missed?
I don't think so, Steve, at this time. If anybody, again, has any questions, they can let me know, or, if they come to you afterwards, just let me know.
Great, thank you. So proceeding along, we're up to agenda item F, and we're glad for our guest, Betsy Lockwood from Economic Development. That's gonna give folks an update on ARC Local Access Road and the touch points, interaction with each of the counties and the members on it.
Okay, thank you. Good morning. My name is Betsy Lockwood. I think I know most of you here around the room. I'm the Director of Project Development and Grants for SEDA COG's Economic Development Program. We're designated as a local development district, or LDD, by the Appalachian Regional Commission. And one of our responsibilities as an LDD is to act as the eyes and ears on the ground to develop competitive ARC fund projects in the region. One program that I wanted to make the MPO aware of was the ARC Local Access Road Program, or LAR, which is a reimbursement grant program. The LAR program funds access roads that serve economic development needs, that serve businesses. And the road needs to be locally owned and maintained by the municipality, and oftentimes the municipality will serve as the applicant for these funds. The PennDOT district offices generally need to serve as the administrator of the ARC LAR funding and will need to approve the design. Generally, ARC recommends road design at 12-foot lanes, 4-foot shoulders. It all depends on the individual projects. ARC can fund up to 100% of project costs, However, both ARC and DCED, the way this project goes is it comes in at the local level, generally through me. It'll come through the MPO. The MPO needs to agree to add it to the TIP, should it be funded. Then the project goes through DCED, and then once approved by DCED, then goes to ARC. And then once approved by ARC, goes to Federal Highway, and then approved. So this project, if you have a project that an access road needs to go in to serve a business within 6 months, it's not a good program. But if you're thinking ahead, designing an industrial park, you have a year, year and a half, sometimes 2 years of time to get the road designed and built, then ARC is a perfect grant for you. So ARC will fund a project up to 100%, but they generally like to see some skin in the game. So either from a developer, a municipality. We've also seen projects funded with match from multimodal, either CFA or PennDOT multimodal funds. Projects with match and then projects with significant economic impacts are the most competitive projects around the state. You're competing with other 7 regions from around the state within the Appalachian region for these projects. Previously, we usually got about $5 million per year allocated towards access road programs. With the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, that $5 million might have gone up since then, but Central Region has been pretty good about getting 1 and sometimes 2 projects approved per year. The MPO would need to agree to add this project to the TIP, as I mentioned earlier. And for the SEDA COG MPO, we included in your project packet today a checklist for local access road projects and also the guidelines for ARC local access road projects. For the SEDA COG MPO, there's a number of items that are required before the MPO will sign off and agree to add the project to the TIP. The developer needs to have notified officials from the municipality, obviously, since they would be serving as applicant. The developer needs to notify the county planning department. Nothing makes the MPO more upset when a project comes in from a specific county and the county planning director doesn't know anything about it. So that needs to happen. The developer also needs to meet on site with the PennDOT personnel. I've historically worked with Aaron Christ from PennDOT District 3 and Jared Lipinski from PennDOT District 2. You know, I don't think those will change. Normally, wouldn't Aaron come to these meetings as well?
Typically Don, but he works closely with the planning program.
Okay, good. And then I think I heard some folks from PennDOT District 2 on the list. So generally, we would do a site visit with PennDOT District folks to make sure that this would be a good project, make sure it's designed properly. The developer needs to select or retain an engineer for designing the project. And I can't emphasize more that this needs to be an engineer that's familiar with working with PennDOT. We've had several projects either slow down or not move forward at all because they do not work with engineers that are familiar with working with PennDOT. And then they also need to provide a cost estimate for review by PennDOT and the MPO, and do a schedule, a project schedule. And finally, they need to identify all sources of funding for the project. So that's the SEDA COG MPO list that you guys had developed a number of years ago to ensure that projects that we put forward for ARC funding are valid projects and that can move forward. Some good examples of ARC local access road projects include the Timber Run Industrial Park off of Route 15 in Grady Township. That's an excellent example of a brand new access road being constructed in the Timber Run Industrial Park. Currently Digger Specialties is located there now. And then there's other areas that are open for development for manufacturers in that park. And then the Industrial Park Road in Selinsgrove Borough is another good project. That is reconstruction of an existing road. ARC and DCED do not care for just repaving. That's not making a road better, but the Selinsgrove Industrial Park Road is improving storm sewer, They're making changes to the alignment of the road. There's a severe S curve there, so they're fixing that. They're making the road wider in some areas. So there needs to be considerable improvement made to the road. Otherwise, ARC and DCED just consider it maintenance, and that's not a project that they would fund. So those are two good examples of projects. We did St. Mary's Street and Route 15 for the Penthouse Commons development. So there's a lot of good examples in the area of really good access road projects in the region. And I'd be willing to answer any questions that anybody has. We're always looking for new access road projects. So, you know, if at any time you come across anything that you think might be good, let me know, send them my way, and I'll work with the developer, the municipality, PennDOT, and the MPO to get them funded.
Betsy, is there a minimum and a maximum amount to the grant?
I don't think there's a minimum or a maximum. You want to make sure that the cost benefit ratio is there. Sometimes bringing federal funds into a project can raise the project cost a bit. But, you know, I've seen anything from as low as 300,000 to as high as $1 million, 1.5 million. Those are the averages, I would say. The more economic impacts and the more match you have, you might even be able to go a little bit higher than that. But, and there was one, you're from Midland County, correct?
Correct.
There was one that was done in Armwell Township, there by the RV park.
Oh, yeah, the industrial park there.
It's not so much
Well,
an industrial
actually,
park,
it's
it's
not.
the bank. MCS Bank. Yep, so there was an access, that's an ARC access road.
So you talked about maintenance, DCD can't use the monies for just plain maintenance, but if it is concurrently done with shoulder widening and stormwater management improvements, then that would be eligible, correct?
Yes.
Okay, but standalone, like if the road just needs to be milled and paved, a standalone like that, they don't.
Yeah, that's considered maintenance, and that's not really there's actually guidelines in here that will explain the access road and what local access road funding can include and not include. But yes, it definitely needs to be an improvement of the existing road.
Thank you.
You're making it better.
What's the statewide amount up to usually, the annual solicitation round that Pennsylvania receives?
It was 5 million before, previously. Now, with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, it might have gone up a little bit, but I just keep saying 5 million. I think the minimum is 5 million per year, so.
And Betsy's, a huge advocate and really helps these project sponsors and all the other parties, get the application materials together, the initial, narratives need to go in.
I would even help write the application and then present it to the municipalities for signature, then making sure they're on board, bringing the PennDOT folks in to review the application, standing here in front of the MPO to advocate for the project.
So thinking outside the box and in preparation, this new safety corridor that's going to connect the two roads, cutting across the large landmass, possible improvement, it wouldn't be out of the question for them to start designing and planning for that development of lands north of the road. But the state road, the connection road, would have to be in place before we could submit.
Are you talking about the Route 54?
Yeah.
You want to make sure that the road that you're working on impacts businesses, and you would need support letters from those businesses saying, we need this improvement because it will impact our business.
This would actually be for commercial and industrial improvements and development. There's nothing there right now.
But they are
in
zoned.
planning for that, once that corridor goes in, would give them accessibility to that. If they designed it, if they planned it, if they had it laid out.
Yes, it would be a
shovel
good
ready
time
to
to
come
bring a
to.
project to me. The one thing that I need to add is Montour County is considered a competitive county with the Appalachian Regional Commission and is eligible for 30% grant funds. That's the only county in our region that is designated as competitive, and they're considered a little bit better off in Montour County because of the Geisinger and the high concentration of physicians in that area. There's a higher per capita income. But you could utilize ARC funds, multimodal funds, and even some developer local funds if needed to put a project together. In that instance, ARC could only fund up to 30%.
All right, well, we can talk.
Yep. Perry County sometimes goes back and forth between being competitive and transitional for access road funds. So, but yeah, but we could definitely talk because I think there could be a project. I would love to do an access road project in Montour County. Mm-hmm.
Betsy has a great track record, you know, all the local development districts that can go after these funds. Yeah, she is very active in making sure that we're securing as much for the region, you know, as possible. So thanks for all
Thank
you
you.
do in support of that.
Thank you. Yes.
We have one on the chat. Ginny asked if they could get a copy of the guidelines.
I believe a copy of the guidelines was included in the.
Yes, yeah, Jenny, if you're able to follow along, I see that chat question. It's page 29 of the online packet. If you've downloaded it, if you had any issues with that, let us know and we can get those to you individually. But they are in the packet. ARC Road Project Guidelines, page 29.
And the checklist is also in there.
Through 34 in the checklist for the MPO that each of the developers has, the project sponsors have to go through. It looks like she's found it.
Yeah, and the MPO, Lycoming County MPO usually comes to these meetings too. I don't think is there anybody on today?
I don't believe no,
Okay.
Scott Williams, but Mark Morowski and their group, they know the program.
Yeah,
very
because
well.
I'd be willing to present for the Lycoming County MPO and Center County MPO if anybody's there as well. But yeah. All right, contact me if you know of any projects and we'll start working with the folks.
Yeah, so if anything's percolating, something's trigger in your mind, feel free to reach out to Betsy and we in the district.
It's never too early to start thinking about it. So, yeah. All right, thank you very much. Talking points.
Great, thank you everyone for that. It's good to have that reminder and engagement on the local access road program. And we'll continue to track those that are already in the pipeline and hopefully see those go out to bid in the near future for Sealands Grove and for Milton. We're up to agenda item G. Following along here in your packet is our normal kind of staff reporting. I'll touch on a few points, but I wanted to turn things over first to Don Keel to give us an update on the electric vehicle charging station study, so I don't go through a bunch of things and distract from that. So Don, if you could give members an update on the charging study and some of the upcoming events.
Yeah, we started this project late last year and we're working with Michael Baker on it. And I know Brian Funkhauser is on the meeting, and after I get done, if he wants to add anything, I'll ask him if he would like to do that. This is the electric vehicle charging station study. I think everyone knows EVs are an up and coming thing. We're getting a lot more prominent, a lot more funding. There's a lot of funding currently flowing down from the federal government through PennDOT for establishing new electric vehicle charging stations. And in our MPO, that primarily, it means Interstate 80. But the main corridors that will be looked at, that'll start filtering down through to other areas that we want to have a part in and looking at, like the 1115 corridor, 22322, 220 are examples of that. In addition to the actual study project, where the emphasis is to try to identify some candidate areas for putting charging stations, we are sponsoring, along with Penn College on February 22nd, an EV event, we're calling it. If you're aware or not of what Penn College is involved with, they are making a major commitment to training workers in electric vehicle maintenance. And as a result, they have a good program for that, instructional. And they have a large facility where they have many vehicles, including about a dozen EVs that students can work on. So on February 22nd, this is a targeted invitation. I think the members of the EV steering committee have all been invited for that, but we'll be meeting there for a combination educational instruction part of this event. PennDOT people will be there, and various others. And then we'll be going right across the parking lot essentially to the facility to look at EVs and get a good look at the insides of them, so to speak. The invitations have gone out this week. We have invited over 250 people, and the facility can hold up to 100 in the instructional part. So we're hoping for a really good turnout. By the time we have our next MPO meeting, we can provide some feedback from them. The main result of that, we hope, will be interest on the part of some of the attendees on talking to us further about being interested in establishing some charging stations. I'll just ask Brian if he would like to add anything. Brian, if you can hear that.
Sure, Dawn. I guess I would just reiterate that the venue has a capacity for 100 participants. So it is first come, first served. I'll add too, some of the speakers that we have invited to be a part of this include Dan Zakaris, will be probably one of the main speakers. And we're also going to have Natasha Fackler, who is PennDOT's infrastructure implementation coordinator. And then we've also invited Tony Bandiero from Clean Cities will also be another speaker. And Dawn, we just got a update on registrations this morning. We're up to 13 individuals have registered so far. So plenty of seats still available. Number of PennDOT folks, county planning, and some area hotels representatives have registered so far for the event. So again, invitations have gone out. Take a look at those. Again, the event is going to be on Thursday, February 22nd, beginning in the afternoon there at Penn College.
Thank you, yeah, we're really excited about that. You know, Don was able to visit the site, establish a good relationship with Penn College. We've already had that through some of our other programs through LTAP, the training and technical assistance through that. And so we're pleased about that for a local facility and a college that we could partner with on this type of event, and the speakers that are coming together. And again, to draw more interest, education, awareness about charging stations, the opportunities and challenges. And we're excited about putting this together. PennDOT's been doing a great job of education and community forums. But now as we're moving forward, hopefully tapping into some of the federal funding for charging stations to try and increase the awareness levels and partnerships and arrangements that can be put into place to expand the network of these charging stations. So thanks for all the work you've done on this today.
Just one final comment. This is not for the general public, essentially. I might not have made that real clear. It's a targeted invitation list. And it did go out to all the counties, planning people, certain municipalities, legislators, and so on. But if any of you didn't receive the invitation, you have interest in attending, or would like to pass it on to certain people, that would be fine, but please let me know afterward or through email, and I'll be glad to see that you get an invitation.
Great. Thank you, Don.
I have a question for Dawn. Dawn, given the fact that the federal government heavily subsidizes the manufacturers of these electric cars, and you get, if you buy them, I understand you can get tax credits. Is there any study or analysis being done for, the state of Pennsylvania and the demand for these electric vehicles, asking the opinions of people, whether they plan on buying an electric vehicle, whether they want to buy an electric vehicle? Because in my opinion, if you're getting all this infrastructure money from the federal government and you build all these charging stations and you don't have the demand for people to buy these vehicles, to me, that's a wasted investment. So what, if anything, has been done as far as that type of analysis?
Yeah, there are ongoing things to, I don't know that I would call it a formal document analysis that's going to come out. But the two things to realize is that the EV users can kind of split out into different types. And one of the reasons that PennDOT has identified the main corridors like Interstate 80 is not only to serve Pennsylvania residents, but through people who are on longer trips as well. On the local side, PennDOT has sponsored a series of 6 public meetings around the state to provide educational information. Some of the people involved in that will be at our event, but also to get input from local residents. And these are the kind of topics that do come up. I attended one in Williamsport back in, I think, November. And that very question has been asked, what's the growth in EVs and is it keeping pace? And should we, as taxpayers, be subsidizing a lot of this? So PennDOT's been collecting a lot of information. They do track EV registrations. I think everybody's probably aware that there's been a lot of discussion about will vehicle registration fees change or be implemented for EV users, hybrid users and others. So that's all been a topic of analysis as well. So things are being tracked. In a way, it's a little bit chicken and the egg. Do you get the stations and people are going to buy more vehicles, or do we look at people buying more vehicles first and stations come? So I think the big thing to emphasize is this is a very fast changing topic area, especially with a lot of the federal funding coming down. PennDOT's doing their best to try to keep up with it, but I think they're monitoring things on developments. And I'm sure as some of these stations that are being subsidized or funded in part with state and federal funds get implemented, they'll be doing a lot of tracking for that. I do know that a lot of these stations, I think there's a mandate that PennDOT has put into place that data is automatically tracked on usage. So that's another aspect I think that we'll get some information on as time goes on.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if Brian or Frank or Nathan, if you had any additional comment on that. I mean, there's been several plans already put in place, then the NEVI plan for the state, the mobility plan, and I think some surveying is part of that of the general public. And to Don's point, for the vital tourism flows into the region, and to be able to have people charge up, visit downtown establishments or other businesses in the region, and be able to do that, efficiently is key with these fast charging devices as well. So
Has PennDOT or the Commonwealth taken action to place these charging stations at rest stops already on 80?
Yeah, the very first one to be implemented is on Interstate 80. I think it's out of Sheets, if I remember right. But there's a list of maybe 6 or 8 high priority locations to put these. If we're talking about actual rest stops on Interstate 80 that the state's provided, it's because of federal mandates, the funding is not eligible to put stations there. If there's some sponsorship by private companies, perhaps maybe to be involved in it, I think there may be opportunities for that. But that kind of funding can't go directly to put stations at the rest areas.
I'm just wondering, those are already through traffic rest areas that would be possibly, a highlighted area to put one.
Yeah, that question has been asked by others when I've been in some of these meetings, but that's the situation as I know it right now, as I understand it.
And they have to, I think, set multiple payment options. It can't be like a proprietary thing. It be open to the public.
Like we don't sell gas at the rest areas either, but unless it's a franchise or somebody.
Well, the turnpike system is allowed to do that, but on the free interstates now.
Yeah, just add that, for more information on really the NEVI plan, and there's a lot of the data that you were asking about. There is the PennDOT NEVI webpage that's out there, goes into a lot, and the plan's updated every year. It has to be updated every year. So that's part of that stakeholder engagement, going back out for public participation. So that webpage has a whole lot of information on there, answer a lot of questions. And the next round of the NEVI program actually is closing today, I think, 1A. So we'll be getting applications for that and trying to close those gaps on the primary corridors. And then we'll be able to start to go down into these more local corridors.
Thank you, Nathan. Any additional questions on the charging station study or the event in February? And like Don said, if anything to that directly and you're interested, let us know. There was a pretty large distribution list that's going out to. I'm glad the registrations are trickling in, and to have this kind of partnership with businesses and other potential charging station hosting sites in the region. Okay, if there's nothing further, we'll do a quick rundown, a couple highlights here of the staff activity report. It begins on page 36. A couple of these will be hit later on with agenda items, so I won't hit on those. I did want to mention page 37, we referenced the annual listing of obligated projects. That's one of the requirements for all MPOs to fulfill. So all the projects receiving federal funds that were obligated during the fiscal year, we have to provide a listing of that on our website, and we take that step with our report Kristen compiles, and also we put a social media post out about that as well. So anyone can check out the obligations that occurred for projects within our 8-county MPO region on that report link. It is listed there on page 37. On the coordinated transit plan update, just wanted to mention our current plan from 2019 that we do jointly with the Williamsport MPO is from September 2019. So we're working through with our consultant team to update that. Some of the demographics, analysis, mapping right now is underway, and there'll be some stakeholder interviews and focus groups scheduled here in the near future, as well as some of the primary stakeholders in the region, human service agencies, representatives of low income, disabled seniors, the transit operators themselves, obviously. Those would be occurring in the probably February, March timeframe. And then throughout the spring, summer, probably work toward having a draft plan. And intention this time, kind of harnessing the power of online story maps and things like that. We'll have this plan available as a story map to make it more visual and much easier to consume by all of our stakeholders in the region. So that would be the intent for that. And we'll still have PDF versions that could be referenced or used as well, but to really push people toward the online story map. And so our consultant team from Gannett Fleming and Rockland Planning is really assisting us with that, which is huge. And they have a ton of transit expertise and strong connections with PennDOT's Bureau of Public Transportation. So we're glad for that. We'll continue to give updates, and if any of you have questions in the interim, feel free to let us know. On the ADA coordinator designation, recall we addressed that at the last meeting with Kristen being designated as the ADA coordinator for the MPO. Our public meeting notice was updated to reflect the proper language. So what Michelle sends the daily item for that was addressed, and also on our website and companion complaint procedures. So we're glad to take those steps and make sure that we're fully in compliance. Sometimes things are caught as reviews are done of planning agencies across the state, and this was something we were essentially doing, but we just had to round it out a little bit with some of the language and some of our policies. So that's been addressed and will be submitted to PennDOT fully. The long-range transportation plan update, just wanted to call your attention to that. Since we were 30 months out from the expiration of our current long-range plan, we had a kickoff meeting with PennDOT and Federal Highway Administration staff. And so that is beginning. You'll hear more, start to trickle out as we're further designing it and move towards some of the engagement with the MPO members and other stakeholders in the region. But June of 2026 is when it'll expire. So we'll be marching forward with all the things that need to come together for a long-range plan, similar to like a county comprehensive plan that a lot of you are familiar with those different elements and kind of processes. So that'll be our goal, to make sure that we have that out for comment plenty enough in advance for everyone to be reviewing and comfortable with it, and then have the new 2026 plan adopted by June of 2026. Next, in your following along there with the packet, we're up to page 38. Call your attention to the PennDOT statewide vulnerable road user safety assessment was published after our November meeting. We have that linked if you're interested, as well as data and maps included therein. And that's a huge focus area, obviously, because nationwide we've seen a lot of increases in serious injuries and fatalities for pedestrians and other vulnerable road users. So trying to make sure we're being more strategic and using the safety dollars to address those and minimize and reduce crashes and the risk for our vulnerable road users. They'll be continuing outreach. We kind of chose initially the countdown timers and other things for pedestrians at existing signals as how we could quickly get the dollars out there. But we'll be looking at some of the projects that are more complicated and complex for using those set aside VRE funds in the future. The carbon reduction strategy is somewhat related to our earlier electric vehicle discussion. That's on page 38. The state's carbon reduction strategy was provided to the Federal Highway Administration. I don't think that the full certification has come in yet, but it's expected mid-February, so we can share that as it comes together. But looking at our 8-county SEDA COG MPO region, estimated receive about $6.4 million in the carbon reduction program funds through the length of the bipartisan infrastructure law, the close of federal fiscal year 2026. So that document is included in your packet that identifies eligible project types for the CRP fund. If you recall, last time we've been approving some amendments in District 2 for some of the intelligent transportation systems, for some of those slow moving vehicle warning detection devices, and also in District 3 for the highway lighting to improve that for more energy efficient purposes. And so those were the initial stage, just because how quickly the funds had to be programmed. But as we're moving forward, look forward to engaging the members and your ideas for the types of projects that we've been kind of proposing, whether it's the EV charging stations, park and ride lots, potential trail projects. We initially looked at the TA set aside and if any needed additional funds, but that wasn't the case in our area initially. Some of those have emissions benefits, but the project in Montour County was the best initial option for that. The TA set aside project, the North Branch Canal Trail, the timing and the current estimates didn't really suggest that they needed these types of funds to make that a reality. So roundabouts are another option you'll see in there, project types that are eligible, van pools and additional transit projects. And those of you that may have done work in CMAQ or the congestion mitigation air quality improvement type project areas, any of those eligible projects essentially use the carbon reduction program fund. So all that to kind of say, more discussions and close partnering with the members on those, but we'll hopefully see some of those funds being applied to projects that can advance in the near future. But the initial stages, at least we're taking, and we have those programs on our tip. On page 39, just to highlight the PennDOT multimodal fund applications that had closed in mid-November, and we always have the opportunity as an MPO to get those applications and review and comment on them. So when those are shared with us, we'll be sure that we're coordinating with county planning members and the full MPO to show you, any of the staff level comments that we have put together. And we always closely coordinate with each of the district staffs as well on their review of them. So those will be coming in the near future. The DCD pot of multimodal, those were due mid last year. Sometimes the approvals come in November, sometimes the early part of the year, but those have not come down yet from DCD and the Commonwealth Financing Authority. But when they do, we'll make sure that we advertise that and make you all aware of what was selected for the PennDOT or the DCD side of multimodal.
Do you know when that's going to happen?
I do not, and I cannot see that they have their next board meeting scheduled on the CFA site. So they just did the Greenways Trails Recreation project, but they didn't include multimodal. So I'm not sure. I don't know if anybody else has any kind of read or direction on that or not, but
A lot of municipalities were asking me, like I'm in too, so, but I haven't heard anything from CFA.
And otherwise on the staff report, I think a lot of these are kind of self-explanatory. And like I said, we had a couple of the other items here a little bit later on the agenda. But before we open up for another questions, just on the LTAP side of things, I wanted to mention our intern that we had hired back in October from Bucknell University was doing a lot of trail cataloging for us initially. And now we have him working on some LTAP mapping, kind of looking where municipalities have attended training, which ones have requested technical assistance through LTAP. So we kind of target the non-responsive areas and try and engage them to use the services that are available to them for free. And also where our class sites have been hosted, so we can have that kind of fair and equitable in terms of locations we're using for courses. So we're glad to have interns and give them good quality work experience. And so he's going to be doing some online mapping for us related to that. And then Don, the Stewart Thunder, about the spring classes and maybe the new pilot classes, if you want to mention about how you're working on those.
Yeah, just briefly. And for those of you that are new, LTAP is a little less prominent program maybe that sponsored by federal government, but comes down through PennDOT again. As Steve mentioned, it's free services provided to municipalities. Municipalities can request on-site course from a course catalog. There's also courses offered virtually, and technical assistance, site visits from industry experts are also supported. So the classes are generally conducted by contracted consultants who are experts in the field. Every year there are new classes that are offered, and there are 4 that will be offered during 2024 that I wanted to mention. There's a couple of pilot programs that we'll be looking at in February, and then that'll be opened up by summertime through the rest of the year. One will be new on GIS. I don't expect that to be incredibly technical. It'll just be more an introduction to people. Another area that is of growing interest to transportation people around the state is use of drones. I think you've heard in prior meetings, we have purchased one recently that Bryce Buck is becoming a licensed operator for here. So that will be offered this year. The other 2 classes are dealing with local truck traffic, which I think will be very interesting because it's a significant issue in many places. And the 4th one is similar, but it's in for school area, transportation management in immediate area around schools. So I just wanted to encourage, right now is the time for people to request courses for spring on through summer into fall. So if any of your municipalities are interested in doing that and you see them, please encourage them, or if you want to propose something to them as well, I'm the primary contact for that.
Great, thank you, Don. Appreciate that. I know there's a lot in that staff report. Any questions on those or related items that anyone has? Again, the carbon reduction eligible project types, the latest guidance came out from PennDOT Central Office, Mike Reimer and his staff in January. If that's revised, we can make sure to share it with folks. Sometimes maybe people are looking at projects and it's not entirely explicit or clear in the federal guidance. So then there'll be some review and evaluation, and if there's adjustments and tweaks to that, we'll make sure we share that with folks. And then we have the typical recent highway occupancy program and traffic impact study, scoping application submissions in your packet, and then the status reports on the existing TA set-aside projects. And as the approvals come down for the latest round, the 2023 round, we'll make sure to share that. But I think I couldn't do the planning partners call this week due to another conflict, but the statewide selection committee, I think, has met this month. Kristen?
Yeah, I believe they met this week. Now where in that process they are, but they did need to discuss it.
Great. Yeah. So our recommendations, comments, are included in that process, and hopefully here sometime, early or late winter, early spring, we'll see those approvals, and we'll share the news release when that comes together and support the approved project sponsors. Before is there any discussion or question on any of those items? But before we get to our next item H, I just want to mention that thank you, Kim Wheeler had joined us, SEDA COG Executive Director. So round of introductions, you kind of missed at the beginning, but we had several new either voting members or some folks online that were new, so we went and did the full introductions of them. I wanted to acknowledge their presence, and thanks for being with us today.
Oh, not a problem. Good to see everybody. Happy Friday.
And so now we're up to agenda item H, which is a normal annual approval of the safety performance measure targets, and Kristen's going to deal with that.
Sure. So in your packet, beginning on page 56, are 2 items related to PennDOT safety performance measures, which are often referred to as PM1. This data is related to fatalities and serious suspected injuries, and each MPO, in addition to the state, annually has to establish targets to meet those performance measures in one of 2 ways. And we can either utilize PennDOT's targets and essentially adopt them for our own, or establish our own. And the MPO has traditionally just simply utilized PennDOT's targets rather than going through the process of evaluating and creating our actual region-wide targets. So there's also a letter in page 58 that explains what is going on with PM and performance measures and requirements along those. The states are required to make significant progress towards meeting established targets in terms of decreasing the amount of fatalities and serious suspected injuries. And this determination is usually, each annual cycle is not usually announced until March. However, PennDOT preliminary data indicates that Pennsylvania did not meet the 2022 targets. just the last 4-year round of those, and therefore they're required to submit an implementation plan that seeks to improve that. And it also means most directly for the MPO is that the state needs to obligate the same amount of HSIP funds for federal fiscal year 2025 as it did in federal fiscal year 2021. So the packet also includes charts and some information about the most recent regional area data. And so I seek to have approval from the board, and I would recommend that we adopt the 2024 statewide targets and commit to planning and programming projects that contribute to meeting or making significant progress towards meeting the established PennDOT safety targets. And if the board would approve these, the letter in the packet, you can see the last page of that does have a certification for us to submit to PennDOT, which we would do right away. It's not due till February, but obviously there's not going to be another meeting until April, so we'll get that done. So there would be a request for a motion to adopt the statewide targets.
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Jim, for the motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Greg, thank you. All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yeah, I think maybe DVRPC, I'm not sure if SPC, the Pittsburgh and Philly MPOs might be the only ones that kind of set their own. There's a lot of the evaluation analysis has to go into it. I think the vast majority of planning partners adopt the statewide targets, that 2% reduction annually. So we're in the standing of, the vast majority of the planning partners in the state. Thanks, Kristen. And Kristen also has the next agenda item here for an update about the MPO Complete Streets policy. And then if you want to turn things over to Michelle Brummer as well.
Yeah, I would pass that hot potato to Michelle Romer on the online.
Yes.
Thank you, Michelle.
Kristen, you want to say anything first? Or you want me to jump in?
Just go ahead.
Okay, so the Complete Streets program at the SEDA COG MPO has 4 components, and we've had some activity under several of them, and there's some stuff to come. So Kristen asked if I'd give a little bit of an update here. Primarily, the first one out of the gate was the MPO Complete Streets policy, and that's been under development since last year. We've got a couple of I's to dot and T's to cross. It's pretty close to being back to staff for a second draft. We expect to have that completed next month and out to you, I think, in an early distribution for, ample time for a review and comment, and so that we can have a final draft back for the April 5 meeting packet. So that's part one, and the one that's furthest along. That's a policy for the MPO to think about how Complete Streets is implemented in projects. All projects, some projects, that's spelled out in the policy. So you'll see those details coming through. A second piece of that work order, that program, is some model, either a model policy or some other guidance tools to help municipalities take a closer look at Complete Streets. We've been holding off on that till we get the MPO's buy-in to sort of the bigger regional perspective, so we know where we might want to press in a little bit further in that municipal guidance. So that's coming in the spring, but that'll probably be brought to your attention more in for the June meeting. Maybe I'll have a little bit of an update in April. The third piece is technical assistance. So this was some funds that were set aside for our consultant team, who was ever best suited to help answer questions at municipalities. That has been tapped into. Bloomsburg asked us to review a pedal cycle ordinance that they were working on, and that was submitted last year for their consideration. We had some discussion of a first draft sort of commentary and some suggested revisions, and we came back then with some additional or revised ordinance suggestions, and sent that back to Lisa Dooley at Bloomsburg in December. So that kind of technical assistance, whether it be an ordinance review or, hey, this intersection isn't working right for our bikes and peds, how could we get some assistance here? That is available through our consultant contract for this work order. We expect that that'll continue into next year. Steve and I have already had conversations about that, continuing to be available as next fiscal year funds come through. So if you know of municipalities who have questions or need some assistance, need some direction, it can either be available here or through, if it's certainly more significant, can look at PennDOT Connects as a referral as well. The fourth and final component is an update to the bike ped list, project list, that's associated with the Middle Susquehanna Bicycle and Pedestrian Plan. So outreach is coming to county planning directors, other board members next month to update that list that's been sitting kind of static, and we know it needs a refresher. And Kristen, I'll be looking to coordinate with you whether it'd be a good time to interface with the Active Transportation Committee, if you want to point me in that direction, or if we do the outreach first and sort of bring it back to them. But we will be sure to have some tie-in there and have sort of further completion of that task later this spring. I think that's it on Complete Streets. Anything else, Kristen?
No, I think that's good. And we'll be sharing based on, I don't think Lisa is on the line today. Am I correct on that?
It was not initially.
Okay. So we can share the information that was provided from Dan Fleming on the pedocycle ordinance, as well as Bloomsburg's final product, if anyone's interested in that. And there's been some discussion about interest from other communities in that pedocycle ordinance. And just to reiterate, as Michelle mentioned, we do have some additional capacity there to offer technical assistance if there are any municipalities that you're aware of that could utilize some minor technical assistance on some form of intersection improvement or ordinance review. But we will look to probably have a draft available for review prior to the April meeting of the MPO specific policy. And we'll give you ample time to be able to review that prior to full adoption.
And just early thank you to the county planners as you're kind of reviewing those lists. I know kind of those requests come out, pretty frequently for the existing active transportation plan. We kind of want to get updates to there. Things have changed since 2019, and an overall prioritization kind of matrix for increasing safe and accessible transportation options. So beyond just bike ped, and Michelle and their team is also helping us through the coordinated transit plan I mentioned earlier to kind of get that interface with transit projects, where they qualify for these funds and the interconnection with maybe bus stops or other routes and other needs that they have as transit users as well. So just wanted to put that plug in, and we're receiving these funds now annually through our work program from the bipartisan infrastructure law. So for the next fiscal year 24-25, it's not a 2-year work program because of the bridge, but about almost $15,000 that we can put toward these kinds of special analyses and work on complete streets efforts. So we're glad to have that available, and certainly to meet the federal statutory requirements for focusing on safe, accessible transportation. So thanks, Michelle, for the update, and we'll look forward to the materials we'll share out with the group. And thanks for all the plants you're bringing in. It's nice, helps us our oxygen levels.
I'll push them your way.
Thank you, Michelle.
Sure.
Great, thank you, everyone. So we're up to item J. In the packet, you have the core elements of the draft strategic plan update that we've been working through. And Don will kind of do some introductory comments and also turn it over to Michelle to distill some of those points.
Yeah, just real briefly, and then I'll ask Michelle to amplify on things. Page 61 there in your packet. I'd like to call your attention to the box there that says strategic plan hierarchy. This is an initiative that's not mandated by Federal Highways or PennDOT, but it's SEDA COG at the MPO. We're trying to do this every 5 years also. And we kicked this off, some of you remember back on November 2nd, we had a workshop here to try to start identifying components of updated mission and vision and priorities, objectives, initiatives. This is kind of a cascading hierarchy. The end goal is to come up with a good list of initiatives that include action items, education items, and define an implementation framework with time that these can be addressed and can be implemented. And that's what we've been working with Gannett Fleming and with Michelle and Keith Chase on. So the rest of the pages in this section here detail in more in depth where we are right now on defining these components for the strategic plan hierarchy. We continue to do that, working with Gannett Fleming. We're making good progress on it. I think the consensus is that the project is going well. We want to finish this off by mid-2024, and I think we're on target to do that. So Michelle, if you'd like to add on that, I'll turn it over to you here.
Sure. Thanks, Don. I'm glad you referenced a workshop that we had back in November. Many of you participated in that, either in person or virtually. So we were glad to have near full participation in the workshop, and we were able to share out sort of results afterward. What we've done since then is try to distill that information a little bit further, a little bit tighter. We certainly don't want a strategic plan isn't strategic if it addresses everything in singular sort of compartments, but we're trying to find sort of common core areas that need some special emphasis at this particular point in time. The next strategic plan, 5 years down the road, might have a whole different set of priorities, but what do we want to give attention to now with the discretionary time and resources that we can as a board, as a staff, et cetera. The mission is pretty basic. It's a single sentence. We talked about aligning that, making sure it was consistent with the SEDA COG parent organization. No real change there. Our vision is a bit tighter than what we had before. So we've narrowed that down to sort of those 4 bulleted items that you see on page 61: public and stakeholder engagement, intergovernmental coordination, funding, and information, data and information sorts of stuff. Those seem to be the things that the board members were most interested in, and consensus was around, both from an internal how we operate sort of perspective, but also how we engage with our region. So we boiled that down and got those narrowed in. On page 62, we introduce here in this draft core elements, 5 strategic priorities. So we bring over those 4 bullets we had under vision, but we also mentioned safety and multimodal, which was clear in our mission statement that we had worked on. So now we have 5 priorities. These next 2 pages here, 62 and 63, give you those headings, a little bit of, 1 or 2 sentences of rationale about why it's important to tackle this now and give attention to this now. And we introduce then the currently called objectives. We called them something else before, initiatives. Our language evolves a little bit as we try and find the best, most effective communication terms, but you'll recognize those, I think. So under safety and multimodal, improving multimodal infrastructure, incorporating resiliency, planning for transformational technologies. And we talked about the EV charging station study when we met as a staff and as a workshop. So I think those lettered items on these 2 pages, 62 and 63, should look familiar. Those came out of our workshop. They're maybe worded just a little bit differently, but very on point in terms of topics we discussed. There are a couple of ideas for sort of performance measures, and these are regionally defined performance measures. This is nothing the federal government's holding you to, but how would we hold ourselves accountable for whether the needle is moving or not moving at the end of 5 years or in between there? So there's some suggested performance measures we've just started to put on paper, ready for your feedback. So 62 and 63, some of that is information I think that should look familiar, and a couple of new items. The balance of these pages, beginning on page 64, there you'll see under each objective, you will see some initiatives, and that's brand new material. These are, action things that could be done, and it might not be a single action. It may be something that's a couple of steps, and we're not going to the extent yet of spelling any of that out. But here's something that could, either a resource or a process or a type of engagement that could be improved with some additional sort of thinking about how to craft and shape that and carrying it out. So your brand new material is presented here. The ones that we have discussed with staff and have passed their initial, yeah, that makes sense for us, or at least it might make sense for us, are in the main heading of initiatives. Additional ideas for your consideration is always a second category, and there may be some other things there that we thought might be of interest, maybe need to be reworded, maybe not of interest, but we didn't want to clear them away just yet, so we left them on the page for you. And I believe in under each objective we've said, there may be something else in terms of an action that you think needs to be taken, so space to add other items. We tried to make these pages not too terribly dense, try to give you a good page break between each objective so that there is some space for both your brain to be thinking and breathing, but some notes on the page if you wish to submit sort of hard copy kinds of things as well. I'm not going to work through the rest of these 10-ish pages here, but what I'm asking for is for you to skim through that material and at minimum, look for any red flags. You're like, oh, this is just not, I want to strike this, or I think this needs to be significantly revised. That would be really helpful, kind of a quick red flag skim, and get that feedback back to Don so that he can share it with us as we continue to work on the next sections of this. If you have other ideas for initiatives, hey, if we're really going to put the pedal to the metal on multimodal, we need to be doing X, we need this kind of information, we need these kinds of examples or whatever. Any additional initiatives that we want to add into the list, those would also be helpful to hear in the near term. While you're taking a look at that, Keith and I are continuing to sort of add a little bit more meat to these bones, but I think this is really sort of the much of the main body of the document. It needs some introduction. We need some other bits of material, and we need to start working on the implementation plan. And Keith and I will be doing that over the next several weeks. So I think we'll be back to you in April with sort of a next version, a little bit more complete, and maybe a request to sort of look at some implementation material that we've drafted. Staff certainly would have looked at it before it comes to you, but getting us closer to that June target of being ready to adopt the strategic plan. So my request, red flags and any additional initiatives. Thanks, Don.
Thank you, Michelle. I think really good capture of what was shared at the workshop with the members and staff comments to you afterwards. Thanks for pulling it together, and again, direct those comments to either Don and he can get them to Michelle, and we can adjust that for April consideration. So thank you.
Great, thank you.
And next we're up to the draft 2025 TIP update with Kristen.
Thank you. So information is included in the packet on the draft 2025 TIP. That begins around page 74. There's a lot of information in there. There is both the at-a-glance chart summaries, which just gives you a basic overview of new projects, how much is funded by county, what types of projects those are, et cetera. And then the spreadsheet that folds out, the many pages of that is the actual project and funding information. So there's some caveats on this. This is still draft, obviously, and some information that's not included thus far is spike funding. That was not in NPMS when this was drawn down. So the interstate projects aren't in there, and also the larger projects, such as the southern section of CSVT, those funding amounts and projects are not included in this because, again, it just was not in the system when we were. So we do have some information about new projects that are in the TIP. There are, I think the at-a-glance chart does show the new projects by county and what those types of projects are. We did take into account those bridge, earlier this year, the bridge prioritization projects, which was very important, I believe, to the districts in terms of identifying what projects they might want to be able to get onto the tip as those funds were available. So if anyone has any questions, certainly now is a good time to ask. Just so you're aware, the next steps in the process is, the TIP adoption process, is that we would begin public comment period in April after the MPO meeting, probably around April 19th, I believe. And then public meeting would be during the first week in May, and then adoption of the TIP at the June MPO meeting. So any questions, comments, initial concerns? Certainly there's a lot of things to look at in this process.
Yeah, we appreciate all that you invested. You know, our initial kind of round of county coordination meetings are essential, and the close support of the district staff looking at those local bridge priorities and how those can be slid in as new projects. Obviously, maintain those carryovers, and then working through those, and then your kind of safety projects that you had recommended. So that process is very productive. And then we had, I think, 6 coordination meetings with the district staff, the program center, and federal highway administration as we were kind of sorting through this, and a coordination meeting with PennDOT planning deputy executives last week to review this as well. And like Kristen said, there'll be a few changes for what we bring in April. With some of the full composition contains the vast majority, but there's some significant funding there for the CSVT project and some other spike discretionary, secretary discretionary type funding that'll be brought to bear on the draft that you'll see in April, but this should have the majority. We have those new projects. A lot of times those are in the last 2 years of the 4-year program, obviously, to begin some of the preliminary engineering, final design work on those, where those are popping up. But hopefully those charts are helpful to kind of distill all of that, what you see in tabular form. But like we spoke earlier, to Steve's point, the Clinton and the Columbia now county numbers are kind of a little bit inflated because of those reserve line items where there's projects to be identified. Obviously, we don't put a ton of money into line items. That's not recommended, but for some of those line items there, for some of the betterment safety projects, some of the carbon reduction program funds, you'll see those falling in those reserve line items for Columbia and Clinton, just because of the first alphabetically in the district regions. So hopefully that is helpful. If you want any of the supporting documentation that we use to kind of build these charts, feel free to let us know, and the clear delineation of what the new projects are. We can provide that to you then afterward as well. Anything, Mark or John, if you're still with us, you wanted to highlight or mention?
No, Steve, I think you covered it well, that we do have some line item funds remaining for future safety projects. We continue to monitor those safety interests and those safety needs as the days go by. CRP is still there for some decision making, and we do we continue to incorporate a retroactive bridge line item. That's very helpful to the local municipalities and local bridge needs, as well as we are holding at this time in District 2 BOF and BRIP funds with the specific interest of future local bridge needs. Now that SEDA COG has completed a prioritized local bridge list, we can move forward with that, and those conversations will be forthcoming.
Great. Thank you for your commitment to that, Mark. That's greatly appreciated.
Steve, is there a retroactive line item in District 3 like there is in District 2, or?
We worked through the process and identifying the good fits, and there's at least 1 or 2 in Snyder County, but there's not a designated line item, retroactive line item.
Is there a reason for that the 2 districts do it differently?
I don't want to speak on behalf of John. If you're here, would you like to comment on that, John?
We just identify by the list. We don't have a specific line item put aside. We just try to at least get 1 to 4 projects that we can off the retroactive list. So we don't specifically put money aside. We just try to cover the ones that are are there. The only caveat is we have noticed that, you know, we're kind of comfortable around 500,000 or less, but we've noticed now some of them are starting to climb up above that, and it's getting a little bit problematic to try to cover them with our state funds, but we'll continue to do so as much as we can.
Thank you. Next question, John. Any additional questions on principles or individual projects?
I have a question for Kristen. Is there any way, how do you get these acronym definitions like HRST, SAMI, RX, NHP?
We do have a kind of companion resource with the larger tip documentation. It may have been in what we gave you with your MPO orientation as well, which we'll be doing as well for our newer members.
It's in there.
It kind of spells those out within that, but yeah, we kind of do an acronym and a funding code definition list that goes out and is on our website.
It'll be a test of the next time.
Yeah, right. Sorry, Kristen.
No, it's a great question. There are a lot of acronyms certainly, and we do have a resource that if you need, I can send that to you.
It was in my packet.
I believe so. If it's not, or you can't find it,
I'll
just shoot me an email and we'll get that to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we try to get the important legislation in there as well that maybe is acronyms and not just the actual funding codes. And then the PennDOT planning and procedural and financial guidance, we always put those on our website. They're pretty lengthy and have a lot of appendix items that can be referenced for some of those kind of definitions on what funding applies and what it means as well. So it's not like just one go-to source, it's kind of multiple ones.
Gotcha, thank you.
Got a bit of a key at the bottom, but it doesn't cover everything.
Yeah, that's
You
right.
know.
There are some down there.
And there's a separate transit tip, which we had that coordination Kristen did with each of the transit operators, and with that being essentially finalized right now, that'll be in the draft packet as well for April consideration, and that goes out for public comment if there's questions, comments on the capital or operating projects for transit. Great, yeah, so chew on that, kick the tires on the draft listing since you're seeing that for the first time. Let us and the district staff know if you have questions, comments, and then we'll round it out for April, what's considered for the advertising for the draft to the public. On there's no additional questions, active transportation committee update, item L, nothing in your package, just the verbal. As we mentioned earlier on, Bryce Buck couldn't be with us today, but he gave me a couple updates I'll just share. First off, if you've not been aware, the Susquehanna Greenway Partnership has hired a new executive director in Leslie Warner. We worked with her over time in various capacities, and she used to be part of the Center County MPO staff. So we have that relationship as well, and we're glad that Leslie is stepping in and becoming the executive director, and certainly coordinate closely on our active transportation committee with her. She's the co-chair of that committee, and they do a lot of work on the ground, with communities to address their bicycle and pedestrian active transportation, river related and tourism programs as well. So wanted to mention that if you were not aware. And the link is in your packet for our trail demand report that Bryce had put together. Again, we had those trail counters out last year within Union or Northumberland counties on the Knowlton State Park, Watson Town Towpath, and the Dales Ridge Trail. Everyone seems to really like that story map that he put together to house the information, the data, and charts and visuals there. So that link is on page 41 of the packet if you want to look at it. And a quick update there, Dr. Byler from Bucknell University was going to submit a quick write-up and a link to our report to a TRB publication, Transportation Research News. So we'll see if that gets selected. It could be national recognition for what we've done, and we can share that with members afterward if it comes to fruition. And Bryce has put the counters out now in Clinton County. We're glad to have them on the Bald Eagle Valley Trail at Clinton County. It's been successfully advancing and has several sections open. So we have 4 counters there on the Bald Eagle Valley Trail and then 2 on the Lock Haven City Riverwalk. And so we're collecting data. Bryce will go out to check on them routinely, make sure things are operating, and do some downloads, and then there'll be an updated story map for that as well. And I think, not put words in your mouth, I think it's been helpful, Steve, for some grant applications you're looking at and have some quantifiable data.
We recently used the data for a rapid application for more trails.
Excellent. Good. We're glad to offer that up as an option for you. And on the Esri hub site that Bryce has been working on for the active transportation plan, that's still work in progress, but as that comes together, we'll share more just due to other priorities. That's not been able to be finalized yet, but he is close, as I said, working with the Bucknell University intern on a connections map viewer. And Bob, you're connected to the active transportation committee, and now that work group has been focused on putting tons of different resources and data onto this map viewer, and that's getting close to being finalized and be considered at the upcoming work group meeting. So the next full active transportation committee meeting is on February 21st. If anybody doesn't get those notifications and you want to be added or receive the invitations, let us know. And then it'll be quarterly meetings thereafter. And the next two work group meetings are the community engagement outreach and then that connections work group, as I mentioned. Those are in the beginning of February. So that's the update on active transportation committee. Any questions on that? If there are none, we're up to the member forum. We have a few interest items there, but in the interest of time where we are, I know Jeff Eisman had his hand raised to bring something to the attention of the group. So I'll go to him first, and then if there's any additional comments anyone wants to share in the member forum, please feel free to do so. So Jeff, please.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. Just wanted to mention on the state budget, last month he actually closed out 23-24 in the code bill, House Bill 1300. There were two transportation issues that were discussed but not included, so those could come up in 24-25. One is the local share on for transit, which is a little over 4%. There were discussions to raise it to 6%. That didn't happen. And then the continuation of the e-scooter program, which started in the city of Pittsburgh, that was sidelined in June of 2023 since there wasn't consensus by the legislature to pass a bill. And it also means that there's no expansion to Scranton, which is our only second-class city, in Pennsylvania, or the third-class cities in Pennsylvania. A couple of examples in the MPO area are Sunbury and I want to say Bloomsburg. So at this point, that hasn't happened. The governor announces his budget on Tuesday, February 6th. And then 2 weeks later on February 20th through March 7th, there'll be state appropriations committee hearings on the budget. The two that folks may be interested in this group are PennDOT's. That's going to be Monday, the PA House on March 4th. One member who is not on the appropriations, but they are a chair, and chairs get to ask questions, is Carrie Benninghoff, who represents parts of Center and Mifflin counties in this MPO. And the Senate Appropriations Committee hearing will be let's say Wednesday, March 6th at 1 o'clock. And Senator Linda Culver is on the Appropriations Committee. She represents some of the counties in this MPO. So that's something to watch for. The Pennsylvania Department of Aging did a state plan. It's a master plan for aging and disabilities. They do include some transportation pieces and also open spaces. And that's supposed to be put out around the time of the budget in February. So that's something else to look for. We also, Pennsylvania Silk, we do a state plan of independent living, and transportation is one of our top three issues we heard about statewide. Just the access to paratransit for people with disabilities, not be able to get out into the community, some of the challenges with shared ride, and some of the other transportation programs. And last, I wanted to mention federally, the federal budget is under a continuing resolution until March 1st for transportation and HUD programs, which would be looking at community development block grants. And for FAA reauthorization, that's also has a short-term extension through March 8th. Congress was supposed to get it done by the end of last fiscal year, federal fiscal year, but didn't do so. So hopefully it gets done, something gets done this year, but we're on a short-term extension there. I can take any questions if there's time, or I can send an email out later to Steve and he can share information with the group. Thanks.
Sure. Thanks for those updates, Jeff. Additional member forum comments or discussion? Bob?
Question, please, Ken. We had a Columbia Montrose Chamber board meeting yesterday. Got an update on the rapid transit stop hopper program, and there's some concerns, consternation about who exactly is taking on the lead in terms of getting the funds raised to continue that program. Can you point me in the right direction? Is there essentially a point person who's working on that, or?
There's kind of been multiple partners to date, and thanks for bringing up, that was one of the interest items we had included, and we had a letter that we have provided that is accompanying a grant application from Rapid Transit to the Eggleston Foundation. That's included in your packet on page 96. So, you know, throughout time, we've been a forum, we've been collaborating with multiple parties, and, you know, Rapid Transit certainly wants to continue the service. We want to see it continue for the vital clients that are using the stop hopper microtransit service, kind of a bridge between your fixed route and your normal call ahead on demand, you know, ride share service. So they would be the operator and they would have to fulfill the requirements, but the way it works with the match of the 15% required to these funds has to come from a local government, essentially a taxing body. So there's continuing conversations and hopefully to address that and bring that together. But there's not been like just one lead entity because it affects so many different parties. But I think we could probably discuss that a little later on the county plan directors meeting potentially as well.
Yeah, sure, Bob. If I may, just update that a little bit. Steve and I have been talking about developing a small ad hoc group to that represents multiple entities that are trying to move this forward. So we're working through that process. But the first step was making sure, as Steve mentioned, the Eggleston Foundation grant application got in, or at least the letter of support came in this week. So that we're trying to put those pieces together. So it's more of a consortium than a particular person.
Was there a specific amount being
It's
sought?
about $55,000 on an annual basis for the service zones. There's 3 of them. If you recall, the Danville to Bloomsburg, there's the Sealands Grove to Sunbury, and there's the Milton to Lewisburg. So that's what it would be to continue on the current service, would be about $55,000 as the local match.
It varies by county. The Aston Montrose, just for our reference, is roughly $6,000. So the point becomes Chamber of Commerce is trying to decide, should they lobby the commissioners for support? Who do we go to? And essentially, who are we supporting? Asking for letters for support. It's just a little confusing. So if you can keep me in a loop, we appreciate the Chamber and others would like to help out, but we're not sure best how to proceed. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll follow up as more of these strategies come together.
I know Rabbit has a advisory group that we're part of. And I think I know Steve gets on that, and I want to say the chamber director, Bob Garrett, was on the last one. So we can always give you a contact person. We usually work with Sherry Welsh. She works closely with Rich Farr, who's the Rabbit executive director. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that out. And I think they're marshalling together several letters of support. So hopefully this foundation opportunity is successful and then allow more time to resolve the ultimate source for a regular ongoing basis.
Thank you.
And the other item we had in there in your packet, just briefly, is the Charge at Work program. It talks about that. Yeah, there's opportunities to come out as a pledge for support of that, and also to tap into some of those free services for businesses. And they're looking to have that promoted to local governments as well. And it's, I think, available through all of 2025. So you can see some of those particulars and what they offer up with that little brochure flyer as well. We've signed the pledge on behalf of the MPO. Just wanted to bring that to your attention if you weren't aware. And so those were our items. Anything additional anyone has questions about or things you're working on in your regions, or just for the good of the order today?
Hey, Steve, this is Gene from Federal Highway.
Yes, thanks, Gene.
Yeah, I just be real brief. I just have a couple quick updates. Federal Highway recently put out the 11th edition of the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices for Streets and Highways, which is commonly known as the MUTCD. This is the standard guidance for traffic control devices that are used on all public roads. In addition, USDOT has recently put out a benefit cost analysis guidance for discretionary grant programs, as well as a spreadsheet template that can be used. And I've dropped those resources into the chat here today. And lastly, I would just want to mention again the CRP guidance that Steve mentioned earlier that was put out recently by PennDOT Central Office. That's a good resource for starting to look at selecting projects under the carbon reduction program. And if you have any questions with regards to project eligibility or developing a project prioritization process, feel free to reach out to Mike Reimer at the Program Center in Central Office, and we at Federal Highway are happy to coordinate and assist with any of those document reviews or eligibility questions as well.
Great, thank you, Gene. Thanks for putting those links in the chat.
All right, thank you.
I don't see anything additional in the chat. Any other closing comments or questions?
Steve, when is the next MPO meeting?
We are on for April the 5th, Friday, April 5th.
Thanks.
Yeah. Great. Well, thanks everyone. Appreciate it. We made it to our kind of full closing time of 11:30. At 11:34 here, I guess we'd look for a motion to adjourn if that's forthcoming.
So moved.
Thank you, Sean, for the motion. Do we have a second? Second by Greg. Thank you all in favor. Please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. We'll see you all in April, and I'm sure we'll be talking, communicating before then. So thanks, everybody. Have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Take your price down to the, I think, of the background, or if you want to, you have things on your computer,
No,
if you just
I
want to change the.
Yeah, whatever Scott's they were. But whatever, I don't know how to really handle this, so. Yeah, I have the USB drive.
Okay,
Oh, I
so
don't have to
these-
this.
The line items, so like, are they?
Yeah.
Just the very top.
Okay, so these specifically, or?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, you have to do that, okay.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, so these are, yeah.
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 So you want to.
These are the line items.